The cardiovascular system is very important in our daily lives as we have to keep up with the demands of our body and the environment. Our cardiovascular system has to work especially hard when we're doing simple things such as exercise and running, due to the high demand of oxygen and the need for thermoregulation in the body. There are 6 main functions of the cardiovascular system. The first one is delivery of nutrients. The cardiovascular system is responsible for getting all the nutrients around the body to where they're needed, like glucose and glycogen. Another function is the removal of waste like carbon dioxide, so the body can take more oxygen and also there is less lactic acid buildup. The next function is the transport of oxygen around the body, and especially to when we're exercising, e.g. going for a run, so our working muscles can get the oxygen they need. Clotting is key because if we damage ourselves, the blood clots using platelets and acts like a seal so no bacteria can get in. White blood cells also help to protect our body from infection, which then stops us from getting more serious infections or diseases. The last function of the cardiovascular system is thermoregulation, which is very important, especially for an indoor court player like a badminton player, as you need to make sure you don't get too hot or cold. This is why we sweat when we play, to cool our body down. Vasoconstriction also happens in the blood vessels to allow heat to stay in our body and to warm us up, whereas vasodilation allows heat loss across the epidermis. 2 circulations. Starts off at the left ventricle and then goes to the aorta, which carries the blood to the smaller arteries. This big arteries then take the blood away from the heart, whereas the smaller arteries take the blood all over the body. The blood then goes to the arterioles, which are important as it says where the blood needs to go. This then goes to the muscles where diffusion happens. This then goes to the venules, which are small veins taking blood away from the capillary beds into larger veins, then into the vena cava. This then goes to the veins, which the pulmonary veins, which goes towards the heart, whereas the aortic veins go away from the heart. This then goes to the vena cava, which has the superior and inferior, which enters the right atrium. This then goes to the right ventricle, then to the pulmonary artery, which carries blood back to the lungs, where gas exchange happens. The blood then goes back to the pulmonary artery, back into the left atrium, and then back to start the process again at the left ventricle. As you can see from this diagram, the red blood is the oxygenated blood, whereas the blue blood is the deoxygenated blood. Heart anatomy. First of all, there is the septum that splits the left-hand side from the right-hand side. You then have the right atrium, which is on the left-hand side of the heart, the top, and then it goes down the tricuspid valve, which has three cusps, and only allows one-way flow from the atria to the bottom chambers. You then have the chordinae tendineae and the papillary muscles, which attach to the valve to allow blood through, then snap back shut to stop backflow. This then goes to the left atrium, which is the right top bit, and then down the pulmonary valve, which is a semilunar valve and only allows one-way flow out of the ventricles to stop backflow. You then have the right ventricle, which is at the left-hand side, and then you have the bicuspid valve, which is on the right-hand side. Which is on the left-hand side, and this allows one-way flow also from the atria to the bottom chambers and has 2 cusps. You then have the left ventricle, which is the right bottom bit, and this bottom bit here, this muscle, is the thickest. And then you have the aortic valve, which only allows one-way flow at the ventricles to stop backflow. The myocardium is this bit around here, which is the middle bit of the heart, and it's the thickest layer of the heart, and it's also thicker on the left-hand side due to the fact that it has to pump the blood around the body. There are 3 layers of the heart. First of all, you have the endocardium, which is the inner layer of the heart. This is composed of endothelial cells and provides a smooth, elastic layer for pumping. It also covers the valves of the body, valves of the heart, and Purkinje fibers are located just beneath it. It can, however, become infected and so can damage the valves because they're so close to them. The epicardium is the outer layer of the heart wall and refers to both the outer layer of the heart and the inner layer of the serous viscera pericardium, which is attached to the outer wall of the heart. It is a thin layer of elastic connective tissue and fat, and serves as an additional layer of protection from trauma of friction for the heart under the pericardium. The pericardium contains the layer the layer contains the coronary blood vessels, which oxygenates tissues of the heart with blood from the coronary arteries. There are 5 stages to the cardiac cycle. The first 2 stages is where diastole happens, and the third and fourth stage is where systole takes place, and the last stage is called early diastole. Diastole is the relaxing of the heart muscles, and systole is the contracting of the heart muscles. Stage 1. The deoxygenated blood goes through the vena cava into the right atrium, whilst the oxygenated blood goes through the pulmonary vein into the left atrium, where it starts to fill up. This stage is called arterial diastole. Stage 2. The pressure from the blood then builds up, which in turn opens the aortic valve on the right-hand side, the right atrium side, which then allows 70% of the blood to go through passively. The same occurs on the left atrium, but goes through the pulmonary valve. Stage 3. An impulse is then sent from the sinoatrial node, which then splits off into 2 and goes from the top to the bottom and pushes the remaining 30% through the valves and then joins up at the atrioventricular node. At stage 4, the impulse then goes from the AV node down to the bundle of His and then to the bundle branches, where it breaks off and goes down the Purkinje fibers and pushes the blood down the tricuspid and bicuspid valves while closing the aortic and pulmonary valves. At stage 5, the oxygenated blood then goes to the muscles, where it then gives them the oxygenated blood and picks up the deoxygenated blood. This blood then goes back to the start of the cycle. The deoxygenated blood goes to the lungs, where it swaps with the oxygenated blood and also goes back to the beginning. And after the impulse has done its job, it will go back to the SA node ready to go again. Atrial systole takes about 0.1 seconds and ventricle systole takes about 0.3 seconds. And ventricle and atrial diastole takes about 0.5 seconds. The ANS influence on the cardiac cycle. The ANS stands for the autonomic nervous system, which has a big influence on the cardiac cycle. It slows down and speeds up the impulse. This is done by using the SNS sympathetic nervous system, which this then speeds up the impulse. A factor that can speed up the impulse are hormones, especially adrenaline. And adrenaline is a type of sympathetic nerve, and the cardiac control center, which is CCC, instructs the adrenal glands to release adrenaline, which then causes the SA node to speed up. The PNS, parasympathetic nervous system, on the other hand, slows down the impulse. The ANS influence the heartbeat by slowing it down or speeding it up. Heart rate responds to demand. For example, if your bodies have less oxygen, more CO2, lactic acid, and temperature of body and muscles all change when you exercise more or less. As I said, the CCC is the cardiac control system, which is found in the brain in the medulla oblongata. Sympathetic nerves, which stimulate, speed up things, and the parasympathetic nerves, which slow down and inhibit things. This is how they work. An impulse is sent along the sympathetic nerve, and when the impulse gets to the end of a neurotransmitter, it makes the SA node send fast impulses. This is the sympathetic nerves. Whereas if we want to slow down the heart rate, an impulse is sent along the parasympathetic nerve, which then releases ACH, which causes the SA node to slow down. The accelerator nerve establishes sympathetic innervation of the heart, which then speeds up the heart. And the vagus nerve interfaces with parasympathetic control of the heart, lungs, and digestive tract. Blood and structure. Blood is mainly made up of these 4 things. Plasma makes up about 55% of blood and is a straw-coloured liquid that is used to transport the solid bits in the blood. 90% of plasma is water, and the remaining 10% of plasma is protein, 8%, and hormones, electrolytes, and nutrients, 2%. Red blood cells, also known as erythrocytes, make up 45% of the blood, less than plasma but more than white blood cells and platelets. Red blood cells are produced in the red bone marrow in the sternum and contains hemoglobin. The iron in the hemoglobin carries the oxygen in the blood but also gives the blood the red colour. This can also be said that it acts as a pigment. They only live for 120 days but are always replaced with new ones. Red blood cells have no nucleus so that there is a bigger surface area for oxygen and more efficient gas exchange. White blood cells and platelets, on the other hand, make up less than 1% of the blood. White blood cells, also known as leukocytes, unlike the red blood cells, only live for a couple of hours and they are but there are also 3 times the size of red blood cells. They are made in the bone marrow, lymph and spleen, and act as a mobile guard and repair system dealing with disease and damage to the body. Basically, they fight infections. Platelets are also formed in the bone marrow and help to clot the blood in the blood vessels when they are damaged. They do this by working with the fibrinogen to clot the blood. Their lifespan is 7 to 9 days. The hematocrit is the ratio of the volume of red blood cells to the total volume of blood. To find out the hematocrit, you have to find out the volume of red blood cells in your body and divide it by the total volume of blood. As you can see from the a picture on the screen, the arterioles and veins both have boast the biggest blood vessels, as they have 4.0 millimeters and 5.0 millimeters as their mean diameter. They both have 3 layers: the outermost fibrous layer, called the tunica externa, the thick middle layer, called the tunica media, and the thin lining of cells to the inside, called the tunica interna. And basically, the arterioles are the smallest veins, as they only have 30.0 um, which is a micrometer and is a thousandth of a meter. They all have an endothelium layer, but only a couple of them have elastic tissue and fibrous and smooth muscle tissue. The arterioles have the arteriole has a thick, muscular, elastic layer to expand as the blood surges through and to recoil after, and this is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. The function of the arteries is the blood is under high pressure and high velocity, as it has just been injected from the heart, so it needs to carry the blood away from the heart. The arteries go away and the veins go towards. The arterioles are tiny branches of arteries that lead to capillaries. It is controlled by a sympathetic nervous system, and they can vasoconstrict to minimize flow or vasodilate to open flow. Vasoconstriction is caused by increase in oxygen, decrease in CO2 and other metabolites, increase in endothelium, and increase in sympathetic stimulation vasopressin. And vasodilation is caused by the decrease in oxygen, increase in carbon dioxide, increase in nitric acid, and decrease in sympathetic stimulation, which releases heat. The tunica media only has only 1 to 2 layers of smooth muscle tissue. The function is to control the distribution of blood, which transports blood from the arteries to capillaries, the main regulators of blood flow and pressure. They dilate to reduce blood pressure, but constrict to increase blood pressure. Capillaries are narrow blood vessels and are the thinnest, as they are only 1 cell thick, and capillary beds surround the organs. These capillaries are supplied with blood by arterioles and drained by the venules. Their function is to supply gases and nutrients and remove waste. Their function is also the diffusion of oxygen, carbon dioxide, water and salts between the blood and the organs. Blood pressure and blood flow here are much lower, as the total area of the capillaries is large. The venules, smaller than veins and larger than capillaries. Venules are small vessels, and many venules unite to form a vein. Their function is to drain blood from the capillaries into veins for return to the heart. The veins, however, are the walls of the vein consist of 3 layers of tissue that are thinner and less elastic than other arteries. The veins include valves that aid the return of blood to the heart by preventing blood from flowing in the reverse direction, which is called venous return. The function: the transfers blood towards the heart, and the large lumen allows the blood to return towards the heart. The blood pressure is very low, and the larger veins are valves to stop backflow and aid venous pump, and they work with a muscle pump.